We're all so excited about the Rabbit Hutch here at Boswell. So to start with, maybe you could give us like a two-sentence summary of the book.
The Rabbit Hutch takes place in a fictional post-industrial town called Vacaville, Indiana, and it follows a group of people over the course of 3 days one summer as their lives violently collide. I can tell you a couple books that I was inspired by as I was writing this, which is a lot of contemporary polyphonic work, like N.W. by Zadie Smith, Great House by Nicole Krauss, A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan, and An Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace.
What makes you excited to write?
Reading is what makes me most excited to write, and that's always been the case. I've been writing ever since I was little, pretty obsessively, and I was always most motivated to write after reading something extraordinary, especially by someone who I thought of as a peer. When I was little, I had this really good friend, Cassidy, and her family took care of me during the week, like 2 days a week when we were like 4 to 7. And she was this incredible writer. She was homeschooled. She spent a lot of time focusing on reading and writing, and she was just extraordinary for a child. Like, I think even if I looked back, I'd probably be impressed by her work. And as a child, I thought, oh, we can do that.
So the book's set in the Midwest. What is special about the Midwest?
Specifically, the Rust Belt is a place where the brutality of the extraction economy is visible everywhere you look. It's visible in these vacant factories. It's visible in these sublime and completely unnatural monocrops of corn that surround the city. And it's also visible just in the expressions on people's faces. You can see the economic pain in people's postures and people's eyes in the checkout line. And so I think a lot of problems that we think of as American problems are dramatized there, or at least they're visible there. And in a lot of other cities, I think they're more concealed. Not that they don't exist, but they're more concealed. I also think I was drawn to writing about the Rust Belt, not just because I'm from there, but because I think it's vastly underrepresented in the American imagination. It's obviously home to millions of people. And as we've seen with recent elections, the psychologies that are operating there can have pretty dramatic effects on national politics. But for some reason, in films and books and TV shows, there's just a real dearth of narratives that take place there. And so insofar as it is ever represented, it's usually stereotyped and caricaturized. And I think I wanted to reveal the complexity and the variousness that I actually discovered there all the time.
So things are generally not going well for a lot of the folks in your book. There's climate change. I love that there's a 1,000-year flood happening every couple of years.
That was real. The 1,000-year flood and the 500-year flood happening back to back happened in South Bend, Indiana.
As I read this book, I'm thinking, what scares you most in it? And what, if anything, in it gives you some hope?
I think unregulated capitalism scares me the most. I think that it is probably at the heart of every major crisis in America right now, whether it's structural racism or the climate crisis. I think what gives me hope in the novel is the characters all seek connection. And I do think that Blondine specifically is a character who she resists these forces for the sake of resistance. I don't think she's ever convinced that any of her efforts are going to come to fruition. To resist for the sake of resistance, I think that gives me hope. And I think joining forces with those around you and refusing to be complacent in the face of these colossal and heartless structures is that is hopeful to me.
Where did the early Christian mystics come from that kind of pepper her experience in the book?
So I was raised extremely Catholic. My mom was actually in a convent in her 20s, and my dad had seriously considered the priesthood at one point. So, I never even set foot in a non-Catholic school until my graduate program at NYU. And I have drifted very far from all of those belief systems, specifically the female mystics that Blondine becomes bewitched by in the book. For me, growing up in this highly patriarchal system, I saw the female mystics as this rare example of women with any kind of power over their own lives. These women were almost these witchy supernatural figures that even the men seem to kind of fear and respect. And I think that was extremely compelling to me.
The book is getting star reviews everywhere. You're hitting all the must-read summer lists and everything. So how is the pre-publication build-up going?
I do feel immensely grateful that not just for the positive responses, which I know it sounds kind of fake when people say I'm so shocked by it, but I really am. I almost gave up on this book. I wasn't going to submit it to anyone. I thought it'd be way too weird for readers. And it has been really heartening to see that people are not only accepting the peculiarities of this book, but kind of celebrating them. People seem ready to accept fiction that is relentlessly itself. And so that has been just a delight to behold. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to the event.